were trying to do an ancestry research back to their roots, where they could go back here and see in a written record at least to 1783 how their family had, where they went and how they had come here. Now here's how it's reported at the Nova Scotia Museum. The British American Commission identified the black people of New York who had joined the British before the surrender and issued certificates of freedom signed by General Birch or General Musgrave. Those who chose to immigrate were evacuated by ship. To make sure no one attempted to leave who did not have a certificate of freedom, the name of any black person or on board a vessel, whether slave, indentured servant, or free, was recorded along with the details of enslavement, escape, military service, in a document called the Book of Negroes. Unfortunately, the Nova Scotia experience proved to be a tough go for immigrating blacks. The winters were harsh, much of the land unarable, and along with broken promises, life became unbearable. While almost all blacks in Birchtown received town lots, only about 1/3 of them received farmland. Of 649 black men who applied for Beaver Dam land grants, only 187 received them. The whites had settled first and grabbed the best of what good farmland there was. Consequently, many blacks became indentured servants or sharecroppers. Into these struggles, into this misery, into this clawing for existence, came Reverend John Marrant, 1785, to minister to the Black Loyalists, poor whites, and the Micmac Indians. Marrant, a free black born in New York, moved to the South at an early age upon the death of his father. His family moved from Florida to Georgia to Charlestown, South Carolina. Instead of learning a trade, Marrant became an accomplished musician. And it is this talent that took him to a church where George Whitefield was preaching. Converted on the spot to Christianity, and still a teenager, he headed for the forest when he had difficulty getting along with his family. There he lived and preached to Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Catawbas, Hausawas Indians for a number of years before returning home. At home, he started preaching to the slaves on the Jenkins plantation. When the Revolutionary War broke out in 1775, Marrant served in the British Navy as a cannoneer. After the war, he retired to London, working for a cotton merchant. He also preached at the Spa Fields Chapel, where he had attracted the attention of the chapel's benefactor, the Countess of Huntington. She arranged Marrant's ordination and subsequent service to Birchtown, Nova Scotia. Marrant, along with George Whitefield, were members in the Methodist Church of the Huntington Connection that held to a strict doctrine of predestination, as distinguished from Charles and John Wesley, who held to a salvation by faith alone. We have 1420. I visited the Black Loyalist Heritage Museum in Nova Scotia and took the 1.5-hour guided tour. The tour consisted of 3 locations: the museum itself, St. Paul Anglican Church, and the Black Burying Grounds. All were grouped together in one big parcel of land. I viewed the Book of Negroes at the museum, watched the film at the church, and stood where unmarked graves were below my feet. This is, or was, the Black Loyalists. Next door they have a giant new complex that it will be opening this year. Can we see 1425? one of the billboards in the museum. Remembering the Black Loyalists in Nova Scotia. And 1427, please. A close-up showing Black Loyalist settlements in Nova Scotia. So Birchtown wasn't the only settlement, but it was by far the largest. And 1445, please. These are all pictures I took while I was there. 1445. Thank you. Another billboard within the museum that had a lot of history. And now, if we could watch the video, number 1. You didn't know you were going to get videos today, did you?
Yeah.
Maybe I can stop talking for a minute. We can get it open. Video number 1, please. We're going to have technical difficulty. If you do, can you copy and paste that into your... Okay. Or control click. Nothing? If you can't get it, I'll go on.
Here, while this isn't fast.
You think it's going to come up?
I'm using the sticks.
Huh? Give it a moment. The expert says give it a moment. Yeah.
Morale isn't quite there.
Why is it unresponsive? Here we go. Here we go. Finally. It's only 2 minutes. It's not like it's a big, long video. There's the Black Loyalist grounds. I stood right there. You're not going to be able to hear the sound too well, so I'm going to make up for the lack of you hearing the sound. Director of the museum. Assistant to the director of the museum. You can see something inside of the museum as they look in. There's what I showed you, the Book of Negroes. Back to the burying grounds. St. Paul's Anglican Church, which is on the grounds. Watch this closely. That is what African Americans lived in. That was a house. A little lean-to where they dug a hole.
The historical site offices which died into the rich environment history of the descendants and descendants.
We have verified the records for the
records they have. If you want to do research on any family that left as a Black Loyalist, they have a lot of books. They have a lot of books of research that you can look up things. Okay, they're just saying goodbye now. So, because of hard times and a withdrawal of support from the Huntington connection, Marrant left Birchtown, Nova Scotia in 1788 and headed for Boston. By 1789, all of North America was in the grips of a serious famine. The winters had been long and cold for the past several years, and the settlers' dreams of establishing farms were dashed by poor land and the desperate scarcity of farming necessities. Land grants had taken far too long to arrive, and when they did, most had wasted their savings simply keeping themselves alive. Famine struck everybody, white and black alike. Ships from Montreal arrived in Halifax and were desperately seeking rations to relieve them. Since Halifax was no better off, they were sent away. Nova Scotia's population was tripled in a few short years by Loyalist refugees. When the British stopped supporting them, the entire province plunged into poverty. Nova Scotia had truly earned its nickname of Nova Scarcity. However, most of the whites had a better option available to them. They could return to the United States, where tensions had cooled considerably. Most of them had family. Most of them did exactly that. Shelburne was hardly the New York of the North, which was what they had hoped for. Even wealthy merchants had largely been reduced to poverty. Farming was nearly an impossibility. Merchants had nobody worth trading with to do, and due to restrictions on trade with the U.S. and various mercantile laws, even the whaling industry had collapsed. Only fishing offered an opportunity to earn a decent living. Former slaves had no such options. For them, the choice was a brutal one: misery or death. People who had employed them, albeit under exploitative conditions, departed for the United States. Bad situation got much worse. Without farmland or anybody to employ them, most of the free blacks became dependent on charity. After too many years of misery, in 1792, 1/3 of the black population of Birchtown, along with blacks from other Nova Scotia settlements, boarded ships. Video 2, please. They boarded ships for Sierra Leone, where they were promised supplies and land. They founded the city of Freetown, and to this day, relatives from the same family are divided. Some live in Nova Scotia still, and others in Freetown, Africa. I don't know what we're going to be able to hear. Can anybody hear that? Can't hear that. There's a man who lives in Nova Scotia today. He's employed by the government in an outreach program for the African American community. But half his family lives in Freetown, Africa. So he goes back to Africa to see the other half of his family. office in Nova Scotia. When I give you these handouts, the video URLs are there, and you can go home and on your computer. Now we're in Africa.
You must make sure that you talk to the Hamilton because those are your people.
That's Wayne.
Wayne found his people in Sierra Leone. Those ancestors who had left
Other people looking for their roots.
established Freetown.